Homeless girl faked her identity. Now she's the billionaire's secret wife. Before we dive into this incredible story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter like this. And hey, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all around the world. Now let's discover how a girl with nothing became the secret wife of one of the richest men in America. The rain hammered down on the streets of Manhattan. Cold, relentless, unforgiving. 23-year-old Emma Hartley pressed herself deeper into the narrow alley between two corporate towers. Her thin jacket soaked through, her fingers numb. She'd been homeless for 8 months now. 8 months since the accident that killed her parents and left her with nothing but hospital debt and a name no one remembered. She stared at the crumpled newspaper in her hands, the society pages. There, smiling from the glossy print, was Vanessa Colburn, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune. Blonde, elegant, untouchable. And according to the article, missing. Vanessa had disappeared 3 days ago, right before her arranged wedding to billionaire CEO Alexander Drayton. Emma's heart pounded. She and Vanessa looked similar, same height, same build, same blonde hair, though Emma's was dirty and tangled now. Different eyes, but contacts could fix that. Different background, but who would question a Colburn? The idea was insane, dangerous, impossible. But Emma had nothing left to lose. She stumbled into a 24-hour diner, the kind that didn't ask questions, and used the bathroom to clean herself up. Her reflection stared back, gaunt, desperate, but still presentable. She'd been a theater major before everything fell apart. She knew how to play a role. Using the last $20 she'd earned returning cans, Emma bought hair dye from a corner drugstore, contacts from a late-night pharmacy. She studied Vanessa's photos on her cracked phone. The way she stood, the slight tilt of her head, the cool, practiced smile. By dawn, Emma looked in the mirror and saw someone else entirely. Someone who belonged in penthouses instead of alleys. Someone who had a future. She walked into the Drayton Hotel at 8 a.m. Shoulders back, chin high, every inch the missing heiress. The doorman didn't hesitate. He opened the door wide. "Miss Colburn, thank God you're safe. Mr. Drayton has been looking everywhere for you." Emma's pulse roared in her ears, but she kept her face calm. Bored even, the way Vanessa would. "I needed some air." "Is that a crime?" Before the doorman could respond, the elevator doors opened, and Alexander Drayton himself stepped out. He was taller than his pictures suggested. Mid-30s, dark hair, sharp jaw, and eyes like steel, the kind that saw through lies. Emma's stomach dropped. This was it. He'd know. He'd see right through her. But Alexander's expression shifted from anger to relief, and something else Emma couldn't name. "Vanessa, where the hell have you been? Your family's been calling non-stop. The wedding's in 2 days." Emma forced herself to meet his gaze, channeling every ounce of Vanessa's reported coldness. "I don't answer to my family, Alexander. And I certainly don't answer to you." For a moment, silence. Alexander studied her, too long, too carefully. Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs. This was where it ended. This was where she'd be thrown back onto the streets. Or worse, arrested. Then Alexander's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. "You've never called me Alexander before. It's always been Drayton. What changed?" Emma's mind raced. She needed to sell this. Needed to make him believe. "Maybe I decided it's time we actually tried to know each other, since we're supposed to spend our lives together." Alexander stepped closer. Close enough that Emma could smell his cologne. Expensive and subtle. His eyes searched hers and Emma held her breath. "You're different. Something about you. People change, Alexander. Especially when they're about to make the biggest decision of their lives." He reached out, and for a terrifying second, Emma thought he'd touch her face, recognize the deception. Instead, he held out his hand. "Then let's start over. Properly this time." Emma took his hand, her fingers cold against his warm palm. "Deal." As Alexander led her toward the private elevator, Emma caught her reflection in the polished marble. She looked like Vanessa Colburn, walked like her, talked like her, but inside, she was still Emma Hartley. The homeless girl gambling everything on a lie, and in 48 hours, she'd be standing at an altar. Marrying a billionaire who had no idea who she really was. The elevator doors closed, and Emma's old life disappeared behind them. There was no going back now. She'd faked her way into a world that would destroy her if the truth ever came out. But for the first time in 8 months, Emma wasn't cold, wasn't hungry, wasn't invisible. She was someone, even if that someone wasn't real. Alexander glanced at her as they rode up to the penthouse. "You look tired. Are you sure you're all right?" Emma smiled. The practiced, perfect smile she'd studied in those photos. "I'm perfect. Never better." He nodded slowly, but his eyes lingered on her face a moment too long. "Good, because we have a lot to discuss before the ceremony. My lawyers have prepared the contracts. Contracts, prenups, legal documents that would require Vanessa's actual signature, her real identity." Emma's smile didn't falter. But inside, panic began to claw at her chest. She'd gotten through the door, but staying inside, that was going to be the real challenge. The penthouse was like something out of a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, marble floors that gleamed like ice, furniture that probably cost more than most people's homes. Emma stood in the center of the living room, trying not to gape like the homeless girl she'd been just hours ago. Alexander moved to the bar, pouring himself whiskey even though it was barely 9 in the morning. "Your room is ready. Same as before. I assume you remember where it is." Emma's heart skipped. She had no idea where Vanessa's room was. "Of course. But I think I'd like to see the rest of the penthouse first. It's been a while since I've really looked at it." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "You've been here dozens of times, Vanessa. What's there to see?" "Humor me." Emma walked toward the windows, buying herself time. "Everything feels different now. Knowing this will be home, that seemed to satisfy him." Alexander gestured down the hall. "Guest suites are on the east wing. Master bedroom, which we'll share after the wedding, is on the west. Your current room is the second door on the left." Emma nodded, committing every detail to memory. She'd have to be perfect. One mistake, one forgotten detail, and everything would collapse. A sharp knock interrupted them. The door opened, and a tall woman in a designer suit strode in, tablet in hand. "Mr. Drayton, Miss Colburn, we need to finalize the prenuptial agreement today. The lawyers are waiting." This was Margaret Chen, Alexander's chief of staff. Emma recognized her from photos. Efficient, ruthless, loyal only to Alexander. "Give us a moment, Margaret," Alexander said. But Margaret's eyes were fixed on Emma, studying her with an intensity that made Emma's skin crawl. "Miss Colburn, you look different. Did you change your hair?" Emma's mouth went dry. "Just a trim. And I haven't been sleeping well." Margaret's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Suspicion? The Colburn family's lawyers have been trying to reach you. Your mother called 6 times this morning. Vanessa's mother. A woman Emma had never met, never spoken to. I'll call her back later. I need some time to adjust first." Margaret exchanged a glance with Alexander. "Miss Colburn, with all due respect, disappearing for 3 days and then showing up the morning of contract signings is unusual, even for you." "Margaret," Alexander's voice carried a warning, but Emma stepped forward, channeling every ounce of entitled arrogance she could muster. "I don't answer to my staff, Ms. Chen, and last I checked, you work for my fiancé, not for me. So unless you have something productive to contribute, I suggest you wait for us in the conference room." Silence. Margaret's jaw tightened, but she nodded curtly. "Of course, Miss Colburn. I'll have the documents ready." She left, but not before shooting one more penetrating look at Emma. When the door closed, Alexander laughed. Actually laughed. "I've never seen anyone shut Margaret down like that. She's going to hate you now." "She already did," Emma said, then froze. Did Vanessa and Margaret have history? Had she just revealed something she shouldn't know? But Alexander just shook his head, amused. "True. She never thought you were right for me." He moved closer, and Emma forced herself not to step back. "Are you sure you're okay, Vanessa? You really do seem... I told you. People change." Emma met his gaze, refusing to look away first. "Maybe you just never paid attention before." Something shifted in Alexander's expression. Interest, curiosity. Maybe I didn't. He reached out, and this time, he did touch her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You're not wearing the perfume you usually do. Emma's heart stopped. Perfume. Of course, Vanessa had a signature scent. I wanted something different. New chapter, new everything. What happened to you in those 3 days, Vanessa? For a moment, Emma considered telling the truth. The insane, impossible truth. That she wasn't Vanessa at all. That she was a desperate girl who'd gambled everything on a lie. But then she thought of the alley. The cold, the hunger, the invisibility. So she smiled, soft and mysterious. I realized I didn't want to marry a stranger. So I'm trying not to be one either. Alexander studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. He stepped back. Get cleaned up. We have 2 hours before the lawyers arrive. And Vanessa? He paused at the door. Welcome home. When he left, Emma sagged against the window, her legs shaking. She'd survived the first test, barely. But now came the real challenge, the prenup. Contracts that would require identification. Signatures that could be compared. Background checks that might reveal the truth. Emma pulled out the phone she'd stolen from a distracted commuter that morning, scrolling frantically through articles about Vanessa Colburn. Every detail mattered. Every fact could save her or destroy her. Then she found it. An article from 2 years ago. Heiress Vanessa Colburn changes legal name after family scandal. Adopts mother's maiden name Ashford for privacy. Vanessa had legally changed her name. Which meant her ID, her documents, everything would say Ashford, not Colburn. And Emma, by pure stupid luck, shared the same first name as Vanessa's registered legal identity. Emma Ashford. It wasn't perfect. But it was a chance. She had 2 hours to become Vanessa Colburn completely. 2 hours before lawyers, contracts, and the real test of her desperate lie. And somewhere in this massive penthouse, Emma knew there had to be Vanessa's real documents. Her ID, her passwords, her life. Emma just had to find them before anyone found out who she really was. The clock was ticking, and the dangerous masquerade had only just begun. Emma's hands trembled as she searched Vanessa's bedroom, a sprawling suite of cream and gold that felt more like a museum than a home. She had 90 minutes. 90 minutes to find something, anything, that would help her survive the contract signing. The walk-in closet was the size of Emma's childhood living room. Rows of designer clothes still bearing tags. Shoes that cost thousands. Jewelry locked behind glass. Emma rifled through drawers, finding nothing useful. No passport. No driver's license. No personal documents. Then she spotted it. A small desk tucked in the corner, almost hidden behind a silk dressing screen. Emma pulled open the drawers. Empty, empty, empty. The last drawer was locked. Emma grabbed a hairpin from the vanity, her hand shaking as she worked the simple lock. Click. The drawer slid open. Inside, a passport, a driver's license, and a handwritten letter, folded and sealed. Emma opened the passport first. Vanessa's face stared back. Cold blue eyes, perfect smile. April 15, 2001. Emma's birthday was April 18, 2001. Close enough. Height, weight, general features. All similar enough to pass a casual inspection. But the signature. Vanessa's signature was elaborate, looping, practiced. Emma would have to forge it perfectly. She pulled out her phone, photographing the signature from every angle. Then she grabbed paper from the desk and practiced. Over and over, loop, swirl, sharp angle at the end. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Conference room. 10 minutes. Don't be late. MC Margaret Chen. Emma's stomach twisted. She pocketed the ID, then hesitated over the sealed letter. It was addressed to Alexander, in Vanessa's handwriting. Emma's fingers itched to open it, but the seal was intact. If she broke it, someone might notice. She left it in the drawer and locked it again. 8 minutes. Emma changed into one of Vanessa's outfits, a tailored cream suit that fit almost perfectly. She found makeup, expensive brands she'd only seen in magazines, and carefully applied it, studying Vanessa's photos for reference. Lighter on the eyes. Darker lip. Severe, elegant, untouchable. When she looked in the mirror, Emma Hartley had disappeared completely. 5 minutes. Emma walked into the conference room, shoulders back, face impassive. Alexander sat at the head of a massive glass table. Margaret stood beside him. 3 lawyers in dark suits occupied the other side. Documents spread before them like weapons. Miss Colburn, the lead lawyer, a silver-haired man with sharp eyes, gestured to the chair opposite Alexander. "Please sit. We have quite a bit to cover." Emma sat, crossing her legs the way she'd seen Vanessa do in photos. Confident, bored. "Let's make this quick. I have other commitments today." The lawyer's eyebrow twitched, but he nodded. "Of course. The prenuptial agreement is straightforward. In the event of divorce, assets remain separate. No claims on Drayton Industries. No claims on Colburn Pharmaceuticals. Both parties waive spousal support." Emma scanned the contract, page after page of legal jargon that essentially said, "You get nothing if this falls apart," which meant if Emma's lie was discovered after the wedding, she'd walk away with nothing. Not that she expected anything anyway. This was about survival, not money. "Fine," Emma said. "Where do I sign?" "Not so fast." Margaret stepped forward, sliding a second document across the table. "We'll need to verify your identity first. Standard procedure for contracts of this magnitude." Emma's heart stopped. "Verify my identity? You've known me for 2 years, Margaret. Protocol, Miss Colburn. Surely you understand." Margaret's smile was cold. "Driver's license and passport, please." The room felt airless. This was it, the moment everything could collapse. Emma reached into her purse with steady hands, even as panic screamed through her veins, and pulled out Vanessa's license and passport. She slid them across the table. The lawyer examined them carefully, comparing the photo to Emma's face, checking the birth date, the signature on the license. 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Everything appears in order. He handed the documents back. Emma exhaled slowly, but kept her expression neutral. "Satisfied?" Margaret wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice sharp. "One more thing. The Colburn Family Trust requires a security question for any legal proceedings. Your mother established it when you were 18. Do you remember the answer?" Emma's mind raced. A security question Vanessa would know, that her own mother created. Something personal, intimate, impossible for an imposter to guess. "Of course I remember," Emma said, buying time. "But I'm not answering personal questions in front of a room full of strangers." "That defeats the purpose of security, doesn't it?" Margaret's eyes narrowed. "It's protocol. I said no." Emma stood, channeling pure entitlement. "If my family's lawyers have concerns, they can call me directly. I'm not jumping through hoops to prove I'm myself." "This is insulting." Silence. The lawyers exchanged glances. Alexander leaned back in his chair, watching Emma with that same unsettling intensity. Then he spoke. "She's right. This is excessive, Margaret. We're getting married in 2 days, not conducting a criminal investigation. Mr. Drayton, enough." Alexander's voice was final. "Miss Colburn has provided identification. The prenup is clear. Let's move forward." Margaret's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "As you wish." The lawyer pushed the contract forward. "Then if you'll both sign," Emma picked up the pen. This was the moment. The signature had to be perfect. One wrong loop, one hesitation, and the lawyer would notice. She thought of the alley, the rain, the cold, and she signed Vanessa Colburn's name as if she'd done it 1,000 times before. The lawyer examined it, nodded, and countersigned. "Congratulations. You're legally bound." Alexander signed his own name, bold, confident strokes. When he looked up at Emma, something flickered in his expression. Approval? Suspicion? "Welcome to the family, Vanessa." Emma smiled, but her hands were shaking beneath the table. She'd passed the first test. Barely. But Margaret was still watching her, like a predator waiting for its prey to stumble. And Emma knew the most dangerous part was still ahead, because in 2 days, she'd be standing at an altar, marrying a man who could destroy her with a single question, and somewhere out there, the real Vanessa Colburn was still missing. Emma had bought herself time. But time, she was quickly realizing, was the one thing she didn't have. The conference room door closed behind her, and Emma heard Margaret's voice, low and cold. "Something's wrong with her, Alexander." "I don't trust this." Alexander's response was too quiet to hear. but Emma didn't need to hear it. She could feel it. The net was tightening. And soon, very soon, someone would discover the truth. Emma just had to make sure she was gone before that happened. Or better yet, make sure no one ever found out at all. The wedding rehearsal was a nightmare wrapped in silk and champagne. Emma stood in the empty cathedral, a Gothic masterpiece of stained glass and soaring arches, while the wedding planner barked instructions. Alexander was beside her, distracted by phone calls about some corporate merger. Margaret lurked in the shadows like a vulture, watching Emma's every move. But the real problem walked through the cathedral doors at exactly 4 p.m. A woman in her 50s, elegant, cold, dripping in diamonds. She had Vanessa's eyes, Vanessa's cheekbones, Vanessa's imperious presence, Catherine Colburn. Vanessa's mother, Emma's blood turned to ice. Vanessa, darling. Catherine's voice was sharp as crystal. She glided forward, arms outstretched, and Emma had no choice but to accept the embrace. Catherine's perfume was overwhelming, jasmine and something darker. You had us all terrified. Where on earth did you disappear to? Emma pulled back, keeping her face neutral. I needed time to think, Mother. This is a big step? Too big to discuss with your own family? Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. She studied Emma, taking in every detail. You look different, thinner. And what have you done to your hair? I cut it. People change their hair, Mother. It's not a crime. Catherine circled Emma slowly, like a shark. And your posture. You're standing differently. Have you been seeing that ridiculous yoga instructor again? Emma hadn't thought about posture. Hadn't realized Vanessa stood a certain way. I've been stressed. Forgive me if I'm not performing to your standards. Catherine's eyes flashed. And for a terrible moment, Emma thought she'd pushed too far. But then Catherine laughed, cold and brittle. There's my daughter. I was beginning to think you'd been replaced by some polite stranger. If only you knew, Emma thought. The wedding planner called everyone to their positions. Emma walked down the aisle, practicing her steps, her timing. Alexander waited at the altar, watching her approach with those penetrating eyes. When Emma reached him, he leaned in and whispered, You're terrified. I can see it, Emma's heart hammered. Of course I'm terrified. I'm getting married in 2 days. It's more than that. Alexander's hand found hers, and Emma realized with a jolt that his touch felt safe. You can tell me, Vanessa. Whatever you're running from, I can help. For a moment, one insane moment, Emma almost confessed everything, almost told him the truth, that she was a fraud, a desperate girl who'd stolen an identity to survive. But then Margaret's voice cut through the moment. Mr. Drayton, we have a problem. Alexander turned, irritation crossing his face. What now? Margaret held up her tablet, her expression grim. The bank flagged Miss Colburn's accounts. Apparently there's been suspicious activity. Someone tried to access her trust fund from an IP address in Brooklyn this morning. Emma's stomach dropped. The real Vanessa, she was alive, and she was trying to access her money, which meant she could show up at any moment. Could walk through those cathedral doors and expose Emma as a fraud in front of everyone. Catherine gasped. Vanessa, were you hacked? Emma's mind raced. I don't know. I haven't checked my accounts in days. That's not like you, Catherine said slowly. You check your portfolio every morning. You've been obsessive about it since you were 16. Another detail Emma hadn't known. Another crack in the facade. Alexander's eyes narrowed. Vanessa, give me your phone. What? No, your phone, now. His voice was steel. If someone's trying to access your accounts, we need to secure all your devices immediately. Emma's mind screamed. The phone she was carrying wasn't Vanessa's. It was a stolen burner with nothing but photos of Vanessa's signatures and a few research articles. If Alexander looked at it, if he saw the call history, the lack of contacts, the missing apps, he'd know. I left it upstairs, Emma lied. At the penthouse. Then we'll go get it, right now. Alexander took her arm, not gently. Margaret, have security run a full background check on any attempts to access Colburn accounts. Catherine, please excuse us. Emma's pulse roared as Alexander led her out of the cathedral, his grip firm on her elbow. This was it. This was where everything fell apart. They rode to the penthouse in silence, Alexander's jaw tight, his eyes distant. When they entered the private elevator, he finally spoke. "Who are you?" Emma's heart stopped. "What? Who are you?" Alexander turned to face her, and his expression was ice. "You're not Vanessa. I've known since the first moment you walked into the hotel." The world tilted. Emma grabbed the elevator railing to steady herself. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop!" Alexander's voice was quiet, dangerous. "I've spent 2 years in meetings with Vanessa Colburn. I know how she walks, talks, breathes. And you, whoever you are, you're nothing like her." Emma's mind spun. He'd known. From the very beginning, he'd known she was a fraud. "Then why?" Her voice cracked. "Why did you let me?" "Because I needed Vanessa to show up." Alexander leaned against the elevator wall, and for the first time he looked tired. "The real Vanessa ran away because she knew I'd never go through with the wedding. Our companies need this merger, but I was planning to call it off. And then you appeared, looking enough like her, acting desperate enough to play along, and I realized I could use you." Emma felt sick. "Use me? A fake bride for a fake marriage. The contracts are signed. The prenup is binding. My investors are satisfied. And when the real Vanessa eventually surfaces," Alexander shrugged, "we'll say it was a misunderstanding. An imposter. You'll disappear and I'll be free of the whole mess. You knew I was lying. And you let me..." Emma's voice rose. "You manipulated me. You manipulated yourself." Alexander's eyes were cold. "You walked into my hotel pretending to be someone you're not. I just played along. So tell me, what's your real name?" Emma stared at him. This man she'd thought she was deceiving. This man who'd been deceiving her right back. "Emma," she whispered. "My name is Emma Hartley." "Well, Emma Hartley." Alexander stepped closer and his voice dropped to something almost gentle. "You have a choice. You can walk away right now. Disappear before the real Vanessa shows up and destroys you. Or you can finish what you started. Marry me, play the role for 6 months. Long enough for the merger to finalize. Then we'll stage a quiet divorce, you'll get a settlement to keep you comfortable, and we'll both walk away." Emma's mind reeled. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're better at being Vanessa than Vanessa ever was." Alexander's expression was unreadable. "You stood up to Margaret. You handled the lawyers. You even fooled Catherine, mostly. The real Vanessa is spoiled, cruel, and utterly disinterested in anything but herself. But you..." He paused. "You're desperate. And desperate people are useful." Emma wanted to slap him, wanted to scream. But she also wanted to survive. "And if I say no, then I'll have you arrested for fraud. Identity theft, forgery." Alexander's voice was matter of fact. "You'll spend the next decade in prison. Your choice." The elevator doors opened, and Emma saw her reflection in the polished penthouse windows. A ghost, a lie. A desperate girl who'd gambled everything and lost, or had she? 6 months, Emma said quietly. "And then I'm free?" 6 months. With a settlement that'll set you up for life. Emma met his eyes. Seeing the calculation there, the cold business logic. He didn't care about her. Didn't care about Vanessa. He only cared about his company, his merger, his empire. But Emma had lived in alleys, had slept in the cold, had eaten from dumpsters. If playing his game for 6 months meant she'd never be hungry again. "Deal," Emma said. Alexander extended his hand, and Emma shook it, a bargain sealed with lies. But as his fingers closed around hers, Emma saw something flicker in his expression, something that looked almost like respect. "Welcome to my world, Emma Hartley," Alexander said. "Now let's go get married." And Emma realized, with a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning, that she'd just traded one prison for another. The only question now was which one would destroy her first. The wedding day arrived like a storm, beautiful and terrifying. Emma stood in a private suite at the cathedral, wearing a dress that cost more than most people earned in a year. White silk, hand-beaded, fitted to perfection by a team of designers who'd worked through the night. She looked like a princess. She felt like a fraud. The door opened, and Catherine Colburn swept in, her expression sharp. "Everyone out. I need a moment with my daughter." The stylists scattered. Emma's hands trembled as she adjusted her veil, trying to look anywhere but at Catherine's penetrating gaze. "You're not my daughter, are you?" Emma's heart stopped. She turned slowly, meeting Catherine's eyes. The older woman stood by the window, backlit by stained glass, her face unreadable. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please." Catherine's voice was tired. "I've known since the rehearsal. You walk wrong, talk wrong. You don't have any of Vanessa's tells. The way she touches her collarbone when she lies, the way she tilts her head when she's bored. You're a very good actress, but you're not my daughter." Emma felt the world collapsing. "Are you going to expose me?" Catherine was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. "No, because whoever you are, you're better for Alexander than my real daughter ever would be." Emma blinked. "What?" "Vanessa is cruel, selfish. She would have made Alexander miserable, and he would have made her worse." Catherine moved closer, studying Emma with those sharp Colburn eyes. "But you're trying. You're scared, but you're trying. And Alexander, for the first time in years, actually seems interested." "He knows I'm not Vanessa," Emma whispered. "He's known from the beginning." Catherine's eyebrows rose. "Is he now? Interesting?" She circled Emma slowly. "Then this is a business arrangement." "How very Alexander. Let me guess, he's using you to finalize some merger?" Emma nodded mutely. Smart, ruthless, efficient. Catherine smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. "You have my blessing. Keep playing your role. And when this is over, when Alexander tires of this game, come find me. Could use someone clever in my organization." Before Emma could respond, the door burst open. Margaret Chen stood there, her face pale. "We have a problem. A massive problem." Alexander appeared behind her. Already in his tuxedo, his expression dark. "Clear the room, now." Catherine left without a word. Margaret hesitated, but Alexander's glare sent her away. When they were alone, Alexander locked the door. The real Vanessa just showed up at the hotel. Emma's world tilted. "What?" "She's downstairs. Demanding to see me. Threatening to call the police if I don't produce her imposter." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. The first sign of genuine stress Emma had seen from him. "She looks terrible, like she's been living rough. But she's very much alive, very much real, and very much angry." Emma sank onto the couch, her wedding dress pooling around her like a white prison. "So it's over. She'll expose me and I'll go to jail." "Not necessarily." Alexander knelt in front of her, and his expression was different, softer. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go downstairs and talk to Vanessa. Alone. I'm going to offer her a deal, a very generous deal, to disappear again." Why would she take it? Because Vanessa ran away for a reason. She doesn't want this life. Doesn't want the responsibilities, the expectations, the constant scrutiny. She wants freedom. Alexander's eyes locked on Emma's. "I'm going to offer her $10 million in an offshore account, untraceable, to legally change her identity and never surface again. She gets to disappear. You get to stay." Emma's mind reeled. "That's insane. Why would you do that?" "Because..." Alexander paused, and something flickered across his face. Something Emma couldn't name. "Because this arrangement is working better than I expected. You've handled Catherine, Margaret, the press, the lawyers. You've played the role perfectly. And He stopped. "I don't want to start over with someone new." There was something in his voice. Something that made Emma's chest tight. "What if she says no?" Emma whispered. "Then we'll deal with that, together." Alexander stood and offered Emma his hand. "But right now you need to trust me. Can you do that?" Emma looked at his outstretched hand. This man who'd manipulated her, used her, turned her into a pawn in his corporate chess game. This man who, for reasons she couldn't understand, was now risking millions to protect her. Emma took his hand. "I trust you." Alexander's grip tightened. "Stay here. Don't leave this room. No matter what you hear, stay hidden." He left, locking the door behind him. Emma was alone with her racing thoughts, her borrowed identity, her white dress that felt like chains. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Emma paced, her heels clicking on marble. Outside, she could hear the guests arriving. The murmur of voices, the swell of organ music. Then shouting, a woman's voice high and furious coming from somewhere below. Vanessa, the real Vanessa. Emma pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear. The voices grew louder, then suddenly stopped. Silence, heavy, terrible silence. Then footsteps. Coming up the stairs, the door unlocked. Alexander stood there, his expression unreadable. It's done. What's done? What happened? Vanessa took the deal. 10 million, and she disappears forever. She's already signed the papers, already left the building. Alexander stepped inside, and for the first time since Emma had met him, he looked shaken. She said she never wanted this life anyway. Said I was welcome to my fake bride. Emma's legs felt weak. So I'm safe? You're safe. Alexander moved closer and his voice dropped. But there's something you need to know. Something Vanessa told me before she left. Emma's stomach clenched. What? She knew you weren't random. Knew you must have studied her, copied her, planned this. Alexander's eyes searched Emma's face. She said, and I quote, "Whoever she is, she's braver than I ever was. Tell her good luck." Tears pricked Emma's eyes. She'd expected hatred, rage, threats. Not understanding. Not from the woman whose life she'd stolen. Alexander, Emma's voice cracked. I'm sorry. For lying. For pretending. Would you stop? Alexander reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. You did what you had to do to survive. I understand that better than you think. But I'm still lying. Still pretending to be someone I'm not. Then stop pretending. Alexander's hand lingered on her face, his thumb tracing her jawline. Be Emma Hartley. Be yourself. And marry me anyway, Emma's heart stuttered. What? This was supposed to be a business arrangement. A 6-month performance, but somewhere between the contract signing and now. Alexander paused, and Emma saw something vulnerable in his expression. I stopped seeing Vanessa. I started seeing you, the girl who stood up to Margaret, who handled lawyers like a pro, who looked at my world with wonder instead of entitlement. Alexander, you don't know me, the real me. I've been homeless. I've slept in alleys. I've eaten from dumpsters. I'm not. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. Alexander's voice was fierce. You took a desperate gamble and turned it into something real. You fooled everyone, including me, and I don't want the arranged marriage I was supposed to have. I want this. Whatever this is, Emma's mind spun. This wasn't the plan. This was never the plan. She was supposed to survive 6 months and disappear. Not fall for the man she was deceiving. But somewhere along the way, between the penthouse and the contracts and the dangerous masquerade, Emma had stopped seeing Alexander as just a billionaire. She'd started seeing the man beneath the cold exterior. The one who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders. The one who'd risked everything to protect her. The guests are waiting, Alexander said softly. The ceremony is supposed to start in 10 minutes. So I need to know, Emma Hartley, will you marry me? Not as Vanessa Colburn, not as some fake identity. As yourself? Emma looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the hope in his eyes, the fear, the vulnerability he probably showed to no one else. She thought of the alley, the cold, the hunger, the invisibility. And she thought of the girl she'd been, desperate, alone, forgotten. That girl would have taken any deal to survive, but the woman standing here now, wearing borrowed silk, carrying a stolen name, she wanted more than survival. She wanted a life. A real one. Yes, Emma whispered. I'll marry you. Alexander's face transformed, and for the first time since Emma had met him, he smiled. Really smiled. Then let's go get married. Again, for real this time. He offered his arm, and Emma took it. Together they walked toward the cathedral doors, toward the altar, toward a future that had started with lies but might, just might, become something true. The organ swelled. The doors opened, and Emma walked down the aisle, no longer pretending to be Vanessa Colburn, just being Emma Hartley. The homeless girl who'd gambled everything on a desperate lie, and won. 3 months later, Emma stood in Alexander's office, their office now, overlooking Manhattan. The city that had once felt like a prison now looked like possibility. She'd learned the business, learned how to navigate board meetings, investors, corporate strategy, learned that she had a mind for numbers, for deals, for the calculated risks that built empires. Alexander had been patient, teaching her, guiding her, treating her like an equal instead of a pawn. The 6-month arrangement had become something neither of them wanted to end, but secrets had a way of surfacing. And today, the final secret was about to come to light. Margaret Chen walked into the office, her expression grim. "Mrs. Drayton, we need to talk." Emma had grown used to that name, Mrs. Drayton. It felt real now, even though the marriage certificate still said Vanessa Colburn's name. "What is it, Margaret?" "I've been running background checks. Standard procedure for all executive spouses." Margaret laid a folder on the desk, thick with documents. "And I found something interesting." Emma's heart sank. This was it. The final reckoning, the real Vanessa Colburn, the woman who disappeared. She's legally dead now. Drowned in a boating accident off the coast of Monaco 2 weeks ago. Margaret's eyes were sharp. "Which means the woman standing in front of me, the woman legally married to Alexander Drayton, cannot possibly be Vanessa Colburn." Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Emma waited for the threats, the blackmail, the ultimatum. Instead, Margaret smiled. Actually smiled. "I've known since the wedding, Mrs. Drayton. Known you were a fraud from day one." Margaret leaned against the desk, casual, almost friendly. "But I've also watched you transform this company. Watched you bring humanity to Alexander's cold business strategies. Watched you turn a corporate merger into something that actually works." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "You're not going to expose me?" "Expose you?" "No." Margaret pulled out another document. This one, a birth certificate. "I'm going to make you real. Legally, officially, permanently. I've had my lawyers create a complete identity. Emma Ashford Drayton, daughter of deceased parents, educated abroad. No digital footprint for very good reasons. You'll be untouchable." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this?" "Because Alexander is happy. For the first time in a decade, he's actually happy. And this company needs that." Margaret's expression softened, just slightly. "Also, you saved my job. The merger was failing before you arrived. Your instincts, your ideas, they turned everything around. I owe you." The office door opened, and Alexander walked in, his expression wary. "Margaret, what's going on?" "I'm officially welcoming your wife into the family." Margaret handed Emma the documents. "Mrs. Emma Drayton, it's a pleasure to meet you, officially." Alexander looked between them, confused. Then understanding dawned. "You told her." "She already knew," Emma said softly. "Apparently everyone knew." Alexander laughed, actually laughed. "Of course they did. We were terrible at this." He pulled Emma close, his arm around her waist. "So what happens now?" "Now," Margaret gathered her files, "we make this official. The board meeting is in an hour. Mrs. Drayton will be introduced as the new Chief Strategy Officer, and anyone who questions her credentials will answer to me." She left, and Emma sagged against Alexander, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this. Any of this. You deserve everything." Alexander tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "You took a desperate gamble and turned it into something extraordinary. You became the person you were always meant to be. And you," he paused, his voice rough with emotion, "you saved me from a life I never wanted." Emma thought of the girl in the alley, the one who'd been cold, hungry, invisible. That girl had faked an identity to survive. But Emma Drayton, the woman standing here now, wasn't faking anything anymore. She was real. She was powerful. She was home. "I love you," Emma whispered. "I know I shouldn't. I know this started as a lie, but I love you." Alexander's smile was soft, genuine, filled with the warmth she'd spent months uncovering beneath his cold exterior. "I love you too, Emma, the real you. The one who fights, who survives, who turns impossibilities into reality." He kissed her, and Emma felt the last of her fear dissolve. She wasn't Vanessa Colburn anymore. Wasn't a homeless girl in an alley. Wasn't a fraud or an imposter. She was Emma Drayton. Wife, strategist, survivor. And her story, the one that had started with desperation and lies, had become something true. 6 months after the wedding, Emma stood at a podium in front of 500 employees. The girl who'd once been invisible now commanded a room with ease. "When I first came to Drayton Industries," Emma paused, letting the weight of her words settle, "I was terrified. I didn't know if I belonged here. Didn't know if I could do what needed to be done. But I learned something important. We all have the power to become who we're meant to be. We just have to be brave enough to take the first step." The room erupted in applause. Alexander stood in the back, watching his wife with pride. Catherine Colburn sat beside him, a knowing smile on her face. "Emma's quite something," Catherine murmured. "She is," Alexander agreed. "You know," Catherine's voice was thoughtful, "my real daughter could never have pulled this off. Emma's stronger, smarter, more resilient." "You chose well." Alexander's eyes never left Emma. "I didn't choose her. She chose herself. I just had the good sense to recognize it." After the speech, Emma found Alexander waiting in the hallway. He pulled her into a quiet corner, away from the crowds, the cameras, the scrutiny. "I have something for you." He handed her a small box, worn, simple, nothing like the luxury she'd grown accustomed to. Inside was a key, old, rusted, attached to a faded address tag. Emma's breath caught. "This is the address of your parents' house, the one that was foreclosed after the accident." Alexander's voice was gentle. "I bought it back. Had it restored exactly as it was. I thought, maybe you'd like to go home, to remember who you were before all this." Tears streamed down Emma's face. She'd thought that part of her life was lost forever. The girl she'd been, the family she'd loved, the home that had held her childhood. "Alexander," her voice broke. "Thank you for seeing me, the real me, for making me believe I was worth saving. You saved yourself, Emma, you always did." Alexander wiped her tears, his touch tender. "I just made sure the world saw what I saw. Someone extraordinary." They drove to the house that afternoon, a small brownstone in Brooklyn, carefully restored, filled with memories Emma thought she'd lost. Photographs of her parents, her childhood bedroom, the piano her mother had taught her to play. Emma sat at that piano, her fingers finding the keys, and played a melody she'd thought she'd forgotten, a lullaby her mother used to sing. Alexander listened from the doorway, and in that moment Emma realized something profound. She'd faked an identity to survive. But in doing so, she'd found her real self, the strong, capable, fearless woman she'd always had the potential to become. The homeless girl who'd huddled in alleys was gone. The fraud who'd stolen a name had disappeared. Only Emma remained, real, whole, and finally home. That evening, as they drove back to Manhattan, Emma's phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. She opened it, and her heart stopped. "Emma Hartley, I know what you did. I know who you really are. And soon everyone else will too. Enjoy your empire while it lasts." A friend, Emma's hands trembled. She showed Alexander the message, watching his expression harden. "We'll handle it," he said, his voice steel. "Whoever this is, whatever they want, we'll handle it together." Emma nodded, but a chill ran down her spine. She'd thought the lies were behind her, thought the secrets were buried. But some secrets refuse to stay hidden, and some enemies wait for the perfect moment to strike. Emma had built an empire on a foundation of lies. And now, someone was threatening to tear it all down. But Emma wasn't the desperate girl in the alley anymore. She was Emma Drayton, and she'd fought too hard, sacrificed too much. To lose everything now, whatever was coming, whoever was threatening her. Emma was ready because the homeless girl who'd faked her identity had become the billionaire's secret wife. And she wasn't giving up her life without a fight. Thank you so much for being here until the end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, if Emma's transformation inspired you, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to reinvent yourself to survive? I'd love to hear your story. Until the next chapter, stay strong, stay brave, and remember, sometimes the person we pretend to be becomes the person we were always meant to be. See you soon.